Today, we have an exciting panel to discuss film and TV in Wales. A quick intro to Black Swan Productions before we begin. We're a Cardiff-based production company creating branded content to help businesses connect with their audiences. We also produce original projects, from horror short films to this podcast and upcoming animal welfare content. Our panel for this episode includes David P. Davis, the founder of 5 Acts Productions and former exec producer on Bad Wolf and HBO's TV series Industry. Wiliam Edwards, former head of production at Boomerang and Wildflame. Lee Walters, the CEO of Ffilm Cymru Wales. Rahim Mastafa, a freelance TV editor. And actor Al-shayei, known for his roles in Baghdad Central and Mosul. We explore the state of the Welsh film and TV industry, breaking into the field, and more. I hope you enjoyed this episode and use the timecode to jump to any section that interests you the most. So Lee, can you talk about the new independent film tax credit headline?
Definitely. Do you want me to go into the detail accountancy-wise? Because I cannot do that.
Could you explain, I suppose, what that means briefly to indie filmmakers?
Yeah, look, I think the introduction of the independent film tax credit is an enormous boost for everyone working within the independent film sector. So, I mean, effectively what it means, if you're working on a film between 1 million and 15 million pound, effectively between 35% and 40% of your budget is secured. And I don't think you can kind of overestimate just how important that is for producers. Producers working in independent film just do the most incredible job pulling together various funds, various funders, working with sales agents, getting benefactors to invest. So to be able to go and look at your project and know upfront that you've got that much is just an enormous boost. And it means that we can make more films. We can make more films in Wales. We can make more films across the UK that can tell our stories internationally, nationally, and gives a platform for our filmmakers to do more. And I think enormous credit has to go to, organisations like the BFI and partners who've worked so hard to lobby government on this. Yeah. Obviously, it was something that the previous government agreed to, and then Lisa Nandy and DCMS have confirmed this week. So, absolute game changer really for the independent film sector.
Perfect. So if we could go through the panel and everybody could introduce how they broke into the industry. So we'll start with you, Rahim.
Okay, so I started off with no former education in sort of editing and whatever. I always just had manual jobs, but then I landed myself a job at a PR company that did like corporate videos, music videos and what have you. And then I was there for about 4 years as a staff editor, and that was in about year 2000. They trained me up. And then I went freelance in 2000, and I've been freelance ever since. And basically all my work in those, about 20 years has been Cardiff. I've done 1 month in Birmingham and a week in Bristol. So I've been very busy around here.
Nice. Fair?
Yeah, I started in the industry 24 years ago now in chapter arts. I auditioned for a role in a film called Mind Blowing, which was directed by Lynn. And yeah, from there I just carried on going theatre, went to America, then come back, and since 2018, after I had my break, I've just been all over the world working. So that's how I started off.
Nice. Will?
I did it the very old-fashioned way. I bashed the phone constantly and sent my CV out to hundreds of companies in London and in Cardiff, and this is going back to 1991 now. And I managed to get my job as a runner in a company, and you were basically there doing anything and everything. And I made very good friends with a photocopier and a kettle, and then within time they let me out on shoots, and I worked through drama, went into unscripted, and 30 plus years later, here I sit.
Nice. Lee?
Well, I guess my route was kind of convoluted in some respects. I mean, I'm very, very aware of how difficult it can be to get into the industry. And, I know for myself, I didn't really know how growing up. And I couldn't really ever see how you could make that happen. Like, it didn't seem something that was possible. And I came with a lot of advantages coming in, and I'm very aware of that. So I what was I doing? I was doing some sort of admin work in the DVLA in Swansea, which if you're from Swansea, you've got to do. It's like part of national service. It's just something you do. And there was a job at the BBC doing a similar job, and it felt like doing that will be more interesting down the line. And I just kind of worked up from there.
Nice. David?
I won a competition, is what happened to me. I was at film school, and I went. There was something called the TVYP. It was called at the time, Television and Young People, I think. And they did this thing where we got to go to the television festival. I think it was the Guardian Television Festival at the time, but Edinburgh Television Festival. And I was like a delegate, and I did some more amazing things. And Graham Norton gave us a talk, and we met some writers from Coronation Street. And then when I was graduating from film school, they did this thing where they were going to put 12 people who had been past delegates into work placements around the country. And I was one of the 12. We had to come up with an idea for a TV show and things like that, and we had interviews with all the different companies. And I ended up at a company called Attic Productions that were making T4 for Channel 4 at the time.
Nice. So, are there any specific projects, any shows that you've worked on that holds a special place in your heart? We'll start with Rahim.
Well, I think it'd have to be Doctor Who Confidential, only because it was basically the first proper gig I had once I went freelance. And I was there for almost like a staff editor, but I was booked for 4 years solid, and I did lots of different, not just the Doctor Who, they did lots of other behind the scenes kind of shows, whatever, for other big sort of BBC drama and things. But it's more to do with the culture that was there and the mates that I made. I loved my time there because I was new freelancer and trying all these different things. You had a lot of creative freedom in the edit and what have you. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people from back then, so I think it would be just Doctor Who Confidential.
Nice. Fair?
Yeah, mine would be Mosul, because it's about Iraq. I'm from Iraq. It's in the Arab language. And
what
the
is Mosul?
story, the feature film I'm in, because produced by the Russo brothers, directed by Matthew Michael Canahan, and the story you're told that we're not all the same. So the message you give out, so that is the close one for me.
Where can people watch it?
Netflix.
How did you land that?
I landed that in 2018, audition.
Okay.
And then was in Morocco shooting it for 4 months, I think, just over 4 months, military training, dialect training, and then we shot, I think it was a 8-week shoot then.
Nice. Will?
I think there's two answers. The quick one is whatever I've just done, because that's what you sell yourself on. But I think the one I've had more enjoyment out and it stretched me professionally was GT Academy, and that was back in it was between 2012 and 14, and it was a crazy idea that Nissan and Sony had about putting gamers into racing cars, and they did a little series, series 1. And then the next year they decided to spread it out, and within 4 years it was going to 100 countries worldwide. And we were making versions for Germany, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Benelux, you name it, America, Russia. And we got to do some really cool stuff with some really cool people. And, I think that's the best part of this job, and what I do is, you get to have an awful lot of fun doing things like that.
Nice. How about you, Lee? What's your kind of most proud project from Film Cymru?
Well, it's a difficult one when you're at Film Cymru, because obviously we fund so much stuff. We fund so many projects, from short films through to our investment in feature films. And I mean, the real pleasure is seeing the filmmaker's dream come to life.
Sure.
So the moment when they get to see it on the big screen, and they get to see the reaction. So for me, it is always the next one. It's what can we do that supports filmmakers to put their passion on screen? So it's always going to be the next one.
Is there any one key film that you're most proud of?
I can't say that. No.
David, how about you?
I don't know what his answer is, so I can't say it either. No. I've worked on lots of different things. actually similar to what Will says, it's like it's probably normally the last. But like I think that what I'll say is because of the way that I broke into the industry, because I was working in unscripted. So after T4, I made a show with Fat Man Scoop that was called Chances, where we were trying to get people to break the hip hop market. And then I went and worked on like Trisha Goddard, and I was doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things in the unscripted world, and it was like amazing. But like I always wanted to work in drama. I couldn't really break in at all. Then I was working on News Round, and like I'd so far away from scripted when I was like working in news. I was like, this is amazing, but like how have I ended up here? And then through using some of the contacts and things like that I just happened to have because I was at the BBC, I ended up doing John York's script course, and that changed my life because using him as a contact, I managed to break into the continuing drama scene, and I worked on Holby City. As a medical researcher, it was my first job in scripted, and it is the reason that like I am where I am today. So it's probably that one.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll move on to the current landscape of film and TV in Wales. So it seems to be currently facing a bit of a difficult time. What do we think about where it's at right now?
I can only speak for unscripted, and I'll start, and it's hard. And I know, you know, it's really difficult, and I think it's been well publicised about commissioning halts. You know, Channel 4, you know, I can say from personal experience, as a veteran of almost 300 daytime episodes for Channel 4, when that pipeline stopped, it stopped. And there was an awful lot of people that lost an income, you know, and a lot of companies lost projects and strands. And I don't, you know, I can't see that having recovered in the last 3 years since the pandemic. Survive to 25 is the catchphrase that I keep hearing from all my friends who work for companies who concentrate on unscripted. I've experienced it myself, some haven't.
Right.
And it's difficult. However, people are commissioning. And I think the key thing is if you're positive, if you're creative and you have the ideas, then fortune favours the brave as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, in my time at my last company, we were getting things over the line, and I know others haven't. So I think you just have to be more persistent, more creative, come up with more ideas, and knock on more doors.
Survive to 25 is like definitely a thing that people are saying. So I think somebody told me the other day that we have to stay in the mix until 26. Now that is terrifying. Like another year.
For 27?
Nothing rhymes for 7, right?
Another year.
It'll
of
be
this is
heaven in
absolutely
27.
terrifying.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, very good.
It's too late in 28.
In the scripted world, you know, specifically thinking about Wales, which was kind of the question, right? Like something that's happened in scripted, the explosion of the streamers, you know, has been amazing for so many people and for so many things. And, you know, we are managing to make amazing kind of big budget content in a way that like we haven't really been able to do before. And so it's been amazing. The byproduct of that means that crews have been paid more. The tariffs that it costs to make scripted have gone up. The byproduct of that means that actually, unless we have American money involved in it, it is very difficult to get TV scripted drama away because you just can't compete with Willow or whatever it is that America is shooting in Wales, which is amazing for the service industry in Wales and for the crews in Wales. But what it then means is S4C or BBC Wales and that kind of local for local content, which is so important that like when we switch on the TV that we see ourselves represented. Actually, that kind of content is less appealing to the big American streamers and broadcasters. And so therefore the ability to get that kind of stuff away is really tough and is problematic. And it's going to take a big shift actually for that to change.
I just want to add to that point, and it's a good point, because I think that simple supply and demand, and rates. It has happened across the industry. You know, it's certainly happened in factual and unscripted. And I think the last 4 and 5 years, it's happened exponentially, whilst at the same time, you know, I'm speaking to broadcasters about projects where they're almost asking for budget cuts by 10, 15, 20% from Series 1 to Series 2 because their finance models are changed over the course of time. And that exponential difference of that rate increase with funding drops, it's a really difficult gap to fill.
Yeah, for sure. How about you guys? Have you been affected personally?
I think I've kind of dodged the bullet.
Right.
Because, yeah, it's just, I guess I've been looking. I know obviously from a lot of my friends that they've been struggling, and maybe not so much with editors, but like edit producers and, you know, the likes. But I've been one of the lucky ones, I guess, that I have been consistently working. So I don't feel like I should have too much to say about it other than that.
It's work here, but it's just, for me, as obviously from an actor's point of view, is if they need you, if you get picked. There's work happening here. Next to my gym is Bad Wolf. There's always things shooting here. And there's a new, The Storm, I think it's called. It's going to be shooting down here, 6 episodes. There's loads of work here for actors now, I think. But you audition, if they pick you, you're on the production. So in terms of work, there's filming happening, but from an actor's point of view, if they want you, you get in.
So more of a general question, is there hope for recovery? And what do we think would kind of push that forward?
I think it is. It's like the gentleman said earlier, I think budget-wise, it always stems with money. Let's be honest, it all starts from, right, yeah, I got this, wicked, no problem. I got all this set, I got everything. What's your budget? It always ends with that, and then it's like, back to the drawing board. So I think in terms of budget, if people got the budget, I think if the government or whatever people fund, if the funding's there and they're going to pay it, that's when they'll start picking up again. But I think before COVID, it was like everyone's sort of working one day. So everyone was working and it was like limited, you had not limited, more chance to get work. But when COVID come, everyone who was working then stopped working. So personally, me as a group of actors, it was 5 Arabs. Before COVID, I had a chance to go, oh yeah, he speaks Arabic, bring Freya in. COVID came, and from 5 Arabs, they've gone to Khalid, Mohammed, Mustafa, Abdullah. All these other Arabs come out of nowhere because there was no work. Then they opened the floodgates, but there's 50 Arabs now I got to go against. I'm like, I haven't seen Abdul before in the casting room. Where's Khalid come from? Well, you speak Arabic? Yeah. Where are you from? London? Oh my God, I'm never getting this part. Do you see where I'm coming from? So I think after COVID, the doors opened, but I think I noticed like with the pattern, it's like a traffic jam. It'll open up. It's like yeah, there's work, and everything then clogs up, and it's like, oh, which job do I take? Oh, I'll take this one, and after that, then it goes stale again. So I think it just dips up and down.
I think if we were talking, about film, and I guess this talks to a more general point than just Wales, and the whole model around film has changed so dramatically. And, I don't want to sound like a Luddite, right? Disruption is good, changes are good. But I think when you provide an opportunity or a challenge to technologists, engineers in Silicon Valley, they always come to, it needs to be more convenient, it needs to be quicker, and there needs to be more choice. So if you think about film, when we were growing up, I guess we're of a certain age, films were in a cinema for a period, then they were rentable on VHS or DVD for a period. There was then a period where you could buy that VHS or DVD, and then it would suddenly appear on Christmas Day on linear TV as a premiere. You had almost 2 years where a film built. People talked about it. There was opportunities to buy it. You look at the summer, there was a film, what was it called, Wolves, with George Clooney and Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
They went to Venice, they went, oh hi, it's in cinema, and now it's on Apple TV. And no one's watched it. Everything just becomes disposable when it's at your fingertips, I think. And you lose something along the way. You lose that sort of intangible, emotional part of the film, of people talking about it. It's just there. And it's just going to sit there. I don't know if anyone's really going to watch it, to be honest, because it hasn't had that period.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, it's the same with series. It's now, and I've had conversations with stuff I've done in the last 12 months, is does it get the platform drop as a series, or does it get a platform drop on a weekly basis? You know, as you say, you've got rid of that water cooler moment, as you know, people describe it. You know, you can remember, I mean, when Mad Men was on telly, you know, every day we would walk in and go, oh, did you see the episode last night? I mean, yeah, but how does that work and thing? So, you know, there was some, you know, it created a debate and a discussion, and people used to talk about things. Whereas now, if, you know, recently Show Trial has just dropped, they dropped the whole series on iPlayer, the BBC. It's brilliant, by the way, but you kind of lose it because you go, oh, have you seen Show Trial? No. Oh, it's on iPlayer. Oh, is it? Oh yeah, but it's starting in a couple of weeks on BBC One or BBC Two or whatever channel it's on. So you've lost that whole kind of momentum sometimes that programmes and series build.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, actually picking up on that, like it's quite funny to think that the streamers actually are going back to that model of like water cooler moments, where they were like, at first they were like, you can have it all now, you can watch it all, you can binge it all, this is like the future of TV. But actually people are starting to churn, as they call it, their subscriptions. So now the streamers are like, how do you keep a subscriber? I know, let's release it like week by week, and then they have to keep their subscription. They're like, it's appointment to view TV. You can talk about they've created sliced bread or something. It's like no. This is actually what the TV industry was like before you guys came along.
Yeah.
And they have advertisements as well. They're like, you know, you can like pay a little bit to have some advertisements, or like a little bit more. It's like you are creating linear TV is what you're actually doing. And
the whole thing being repackaged and represented to you. I swear, the frustration I get getting an advert on Amazon Prime is beyond, I would say.
It's so annoying.
You're saying it's nice to binge if they're sort of good, because I'll be honest with you, when they drop all the episodes, I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll smash 2 a night. And then what I tend to do then is I drift off, have a quick look on doom scroll on Instagram, and I missed that bit, I'll rewind. Whereas now I'm watching Penguin, it's only weekly on Sky, and I'm sitting there, my phone's on airplane mode. I don't care, you're waiting an hour, I'm watching it full. So in that thing is like, that's good, and then that's good, and then it's going back. But I think drip feeding is better. Some people are like, nah, you're mad, I'm waiting till they drop it all, I'll wait till it's all finished and I'll binge it. But then for me, when I start, like, you get binging, and again, if it's gripping, don't get me wrong, it is really good, it got you hooked, yeah. But as I think the once a week thing with Penguin, my phone's on airplane mode.
I would probably just also go back to kind of what Will was saying and your earlier point about recovery and what that looks like. I suppose the underlying assumption is that it goes to that kind of workflow, if you like, where you've got the commissioner as the gatekeeper, and you go to see the commissioner, and hopefully they commission your program and they do it enough that everyone is satisfied, and then the shows are on TV. I guess there is a question about whether that model will come back in the way it was before, and I think that's a very live question, and you've probably got much more experience.
Always looking at it's always looking at different streams. You know, ad fund, international distro advances. You know, it's not a case of can we get this commissioned, it's more a case of can we make the show and sell it.
There's something you were talking about just in terms of obviously what's amazing in the independent film world and the tax credit that's just been introduced in the scripted space. Like, we have the high-end tax credit, and there is rumblings, there are rumblings of something may be coming, or that we're trying to have these discussions. But actually, I think with the high-end tax credit for high-end TV, I think it's like anything over $1 million. It's something like that, which is amazing, because what it did was obviously it meant that Disney would come in and they would film Willow or whatever it is, and all of these big budget things could happen. But like what you were talking about in terms of where have all of these other Arabs come from and all of this sort of stuff, it's like actually like you're quite a unique thing that we don't really see enough on TV, like a person of colour with a Welsh accent who's around here, like, why can't we put you on TV? But the truth is that local for local content that I was talking about earlier is getting more and more difficult to be made. We need a tax break for mid-level TV, actually, in order to kickstart our industry again. so that these sorts of shows, BBC Wales, S4C, they can make local for local content. That's what we need.
So, what caused the original boom of Welsh productions, and I suppose specifically in the scripted world?
In Wales specifically, it's actually pretty easy to pinpoint, and it was Russell, Julie, Jane, Doctor Who. That changed the landscape of scripted TV in Wales, but the reason that they came was because of the likes of Pobble and all the other Welsh programming that already existed, which meant, hang on a second, we actually have an infrastructure of crews here that could make this show. So although Doctor Who was the thing that changed it in terms of high-end TV, you know, Netflix, all of these people coming here to make these big, amazing Hollywood shows, but actually just the industry that existed within Wales because of the likes of people like S4C and things like that, that's where it came from.
I also think in recent years you can't underestimate the role the Welsh Government through Creative Wales have played in this, investing in TV, investing in skills. You know, we've got great facilities, investing in crews. I think all that has really helped. It makes Wales a really attractive package for filming it.
Yeah. Nice. So moving on to the next question then. So what has caused, I suppose, the current decline of the film and TV landscape, in not just in Wales, I suppose, in the UK, and I suppose it's also a massive deal in America. But what's caused this recently?
So there was a space race that was happening between all of the streamers, right? Like Apple, Amazon, Disney, Netflix, like all of these billion-dollar tech companies were trying to drive each other out of business. But like most of them, sort of excluding Netflix, but they already had the market share, actually making film and TV isn't their primary source of income. So they, in a way, had unlimited funds. It's like Disney trying to put Apple out of the streaming business is almost impossible because they can just, they almost have infinite money. And that kind of space race led to them spending a lot of money on programming, which was fine when subscriptions, everything was growing, especially the pandemic. Like there was a massive boom. It was like, this is going to last forever. And then we come out of the pandemic, people are going back to work, then maybe not watching as much TV as they were when everyone was at home the whole time. The cost of living crisis happens, and people start wondering what they're actually spending their money on. Do I actually need Disney, Apple, Netflix, Amazon all at the same time? Or could I have Amazon for a month, Apple for a month, Netflix for a month? So that churn of subscriptions started happening. And Wall Street basically started talking to these companies that tended to operate in some debt to be like, okay, cool. So as a business, when are you going to start turning a profit? And them trying to start turning a profit meant that they started to reassess the amount of shows they were making, the amount of money that they were making, and that basically caused the decline.
And I think you've got to also factor in things like the writers' strike in the US, obviously eventually had an impact over here in what was being filmed. Things like, you know, as David touched upon, the cost of living crisis, ad revenues are down across the board. You know, Channel 4 have recently announced, you know, a significant reduction in ad revenues. Everyone is trying to, you know, look where the funding is coming from. How do you keep up with the streamers with their apparent infinite amount of money, which is now slowing down as well? You know, the license fees remain static. So while costs are going up across the board. So all in all, it provides a kind of perfect storm for creating challenges in the industry.
Yeah, and I was just thinking how people's viewing habits have changed as well has an effect, because you know a lot of people's attention spans, like you said earlier, if you're watching something, you competing with the phone. You know, how many times I posted this on my Facebook the other day, I found myself watching something whilst I was on Facebook, and I said, who else is on Facebook right now whilst there was a big popular show on TV? And everybody's like, yeah, me too. You know, so, and that attention span thing you competed against, like TikTok, short form stuff. Like, you know, my mum, she doesn't watch TV anymore. She's forever sending me reels about this, that, and the other. You know, and so people won't often stick around for a half-hour show, or so I think that's having an impact on how people are watching or consuming entertainment these days.
I think that's a good point though as well. Like, my kids are like 7 and 5. They literally just watch YouTube. As much as I go and watch something that's been created for you on CBeebies, they just watch YouTube. And actually, I've sat down, you watched it, you're like, it's not terrible, Like some of it is like, it's, a bit crazy. There's people normally doing gymnastics and blowing stuff up, but you're like, this is quite inventive, a lot of this.
Yeah.
No, and I think people are competing with a wide range of things now that they wouldn't have been before.
Yeah, definitely. My kids are the same. Like they watch this show on YouTube, which is not fully age appropriate. Actually, they're 11 and 14 these days, so it's not so bad. I think it's called SML or something like that. I think the puppet's called Jeffy, and we actually see kids like with these. So there's like these YouTube shows have merchandise, and it's like big business. And I've like watched a couple of these episodes, and I'm like, this is actually quite well written. Like what is happening is actually really clever. Like they pastiche like things that are happening in real world. So like they're actually teaching kids about real world events. There was like this whole Donald Trump thing, and I was like, actually the quality of this stuff is actually pretty impressive. And like my boy is terrible for second screening, but he actually will like 5 screen. I went into his room the other day and he was playing like whatever Call of Duty whilst on call with his mates, because that's how they kind of talk, so that's sort of connected at least. He had his iPad on that was playing YouTube and a TV show on his TV. I was like, how are you what is going on? What are you concentrating on? He's like, I'm sort of just doing it all. Like I'm listening to the TV, like I'm watching YouTube, I'm chatting to my mates and we're playing games. Standard.
It's like, what's that doing to the brain? Do you know what I mean? It is as somebody's growing up. Yeah, it's just your attention span.
It's teaching men how to multitask.
All right. Well, it's a good thing.
That was all the ploy. We do the Spectre of the Bear 2, which is like this is just them trying to teach us how to multitask. It's the man.
What are your thoughts, Will, on I suppose the changes in viewing audiences?
Well, I'm say like Rahim. I've got 2 girls, although they're older now, but the younger one, who's 16. I mean, she barely watches television. Hilariously, I think the only time she watches television every week is we sit down and watch Only Connect on a Monday night. And that's only because she can shout at the television and try and get the answers. But the rest of the time, she is firmly affixed on a small screen in the palm of her hand that is at least 10 inches away from her eyes. And that's it. Yeah. Whether it's TikTok, YouTube, or communicating with her friends, that's it.
Do you think that's cause for concern?
No, and I think just going back to what everyone has said, I think sometimes the content that you see on YouTube and the other platforms is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because it's probably not as thought through and deeply analysed as maybe a script might be for a drama, or when we're putting together running orders for factual programming. It's so forensic sometimes what we do, and actually if people just do it, you can end up with brilliant content.
I don't know if anyone's seen it. Have you seen that leaked Mr. Beast document that he gives out to people who work there?
No, I actually haven't.
It's genuinely fascinating, like if you look at it, because it is all about what does the audience want. It's all about audience. Every single thing they do is it's got to be for the audience. Yeah. And you read it, it's like really interesting. And actually some of the stuff that guy makes is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I remember once being in an edit and had so many exec notes that the entire table essentially was just like printouts of all these notes. And another friend editor came in and we were like, look at the amount of notes we've got to deal with on this show. I said, if we were making a YouTube show, we'd have none of this and more people would watch it. And we're just, the amount of work and effort, of course, we need to do that for quality and everything that we are doing. It's our jobs kind of thing. But I do sometimes think like, we are making this too complicated. It shouldn't be this difficult sometimes. It's like, it's if we keep it more simple sometimes, I think more people will be engaged or equally engaged with it. It's like,
I guess it's equally engaged. There always has to be room for craft.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that, that's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. There always has to be that space for a beautifully written film or well-acted drama, really sharp comedy. But I do think, all of us have to accept we will stick YouTube on as well and just watch one thing after another, and some of it is pretty good.
But I also found some of the shows that I've worked on, there's always a promos department that goes with it, and they are looking for viral moments within the show or whatever that they can then promote the show on swipeable on phones, isn't it? And sometimes I don't know, like I did behind the scenes stuff of say Les Mis or Luther or whatever, and they're looking for the actors doing behind the scenes sort of stuff, messing around on set or whatever, being a bit jolly, so that they can then stick that on the social media stuff, and they get millions of views on those things, and that then draws those viewers to watch the drama then.
I think it's really interesting the way that technology can almost lead the way that film goes, TV goes, but music is a great example. If you think of Spotify, people have to listen for 30 seconds before you get paid, which means that choruses come much earlier in music now. Yeah. I'm sure we're all of an age where we go, modern music's not very good, but a lot of it is tailored for things like TikTok and Spotify. People have to listen for 30 seconds. So if you've got a really, really long intro, people are skipping past it, and it's driving the way that people do music.
Nice. So moving on to the next topic then, and I'm going to combine these two questions. So what advice would you give to people starting out in film and TV? And what are the kind of maybe core skills to kind of move up the ranks, to really push towards what you want to be doing? We'll start with you, Rahim.
Well, for me, it would be, don't be afraid to reach out to people, kind of thing, whichever way you can, kind of, because I know some people might say, go to networking events and things, but some people might not physically be able to get there, they're too far away, or the times, or whatever. But, there's other means of getting in touch with people, isn't it? So some of the things that I've done, if I watch a particular show that I like, a documentary, say, and then I just look at the end credits and see who's worked on it and see who the production company is, and they'll all invariably be on LinkedIn, or, they'll have a Twitter account and whatever. And I've done that in the past. I've contacted people via LinkedIn and just sent a compliment kind of thing. I'm not angling for work. I'm genuinely saying, look, I really enjoyed this show, is well made and everything. And you kind of get on the radar that way, and then you get a mutual connection, and then you follow each other, you see what each person's up to, and eventually that can actually lead to work. So I think, if there's people out there, not to be afraid to direct message people or follow in that way. I'm not saying stalking people kind of level, but use the social media angle and try and reach out to people, because I think most people are willing and open to help. I don't think everybody has this closed door kind of, I'm not going to help because you're going to end up taking work from me or whatever. I think most people are good and they do want to help. So
yeah. And what advice would you give to them once they get into the industry? How do they progress to really get to the role they're looking for? What's that kind of core skill you would advise?
Be good at your job, ultimately, isn't it? And so whatever the job is, say if you're going for, you eventually want to be a camera operator, say, know your kit, whatever kit you're going to be working with. I know sometimes as a camera operator, you might be given a camera that you'd be unfamiliar with, but know how to use a camera, because most of the settings on a camera, whichever camera you have, is going to be the same thing. How to frame in aperture and, all that kind of stuff. And just be good at your job, and also then when you're actually on your job, be good to work with. I know it sounds really obvious, but, everyone has that one person that they've worked with over the years that you're thinking, I can't work with this person again for whatever reason, So don't be that person. Just be really good at your job and be nice to work with, and then people will be happy to work with you again and hopefully call you back for your next gig.
Fair?
Yeah, just adding on to everything really Rahim said, just get out there, don't be shy to ask questions, go to any networking event, speak to people, because I think the thing with people is when they hear, it took this long to get a break and I can't get an agent and you got this, you got that, and you speak another language, they get afraid, and I'm like, it's not about that, because you could start, and I've been doing it for 24 years, you could start after 1 year and get the biggest role, combined to all the roles I've done. I said, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Learn your trade, learn your craft, and just keep plugging away, and patience. And again, who you know, unfortunately, he's come to that stage. Who you know, that plays another big part. Who can open doors for you? But as long as you train, I think you got a decent agent. Take every audition to a certain degree. Obviously, there's different strokes with different folks. There's certain auditions I stop now, I won't take anymore, depending on what the dialogue is. But yeah, exactly, basically what Rahim said. Ask questions, network, don't be shy to ask things, or can you introduce me to this guy? What's the worst they can say? No. You can't let the word no affect them to move further. I think it's all psychological. They build these negative seeds in their head, and then they grow and they think, oh, I can't go to, or they're too shy to ask, or just ask, and you just keep going, and then you're in the mix. But be patient, that's another thing. You've got to have patience and be resilient, and you can't give up. I think we all know that from the field where our backgrounds in this industry, you know.
Sure. Will?
Turn up.
Yeah.
Page one. I think, I mean, for me, you know, and I've spent years working with trainees, and I love watching people grow within the industry and giving people an opportunity, because I was lucky enough that people took a chance in me, you know, and, you know, it was basically, if you don't ask, you don't get. You know, I remember I started off in drama, and, you know, I started off as a runner, then a third, and then I was a second, and they couldn't get a first for a really small job, and I said, I'll do it. And I was really lucky. I had a line producer and a producer who took a chance on me, because at the end of the day, if it didn't work out day one, they would parachute someone else in day two. And I think, you know, having the confidence in your own convictions, ask questions, but more importantly, don't rush. You know, I have a lot of, you know, people come in day one and they've almost got their careers mapped out. But actually, especially in fact, in scripted and in unscripted, take your time sometimes, because you could walk onto a film set or walk into a production office and not know that particular roles exist. And you might spend 6 months learning the ropes and go, oh, actually, I quite fancy that. I might have a go at that one. So, you know, don't be in a rush sometimes.
Lee?
Yeah, I mean, I would just pick up on what Will said. You know, careers are very rarely kind of linear. You know, I think you've got to be open to where you could go within the sector, within the industry. You know, I speak to some people sometimes who go, yeah, I'm a director, and they're like fresh out of university. And you think that you could well be a director. You could be the best director that's ever lived, but you might need to do some other stuff along the way. There will be other things to learn. So it's learning, going back to what Rahim said, be good to work with as well. I think that's hugely important as well.
That's massive. 100% first impression.
I don't think you can underestimate that. Flexible, and I mean flexible with what you might be doing. Everything is learning, and you know, that idea of not wanting to rush. You know, I get it. Everyone's really excited. They want to be the next Spielberg, the next whoever it may be. But you know, sometimes you do need to pick up different things and learn along the way. So, yeah, just take those opportunities when they arrive.
Perfect. David?
Yeah, everything that everybody said is the right one. What Rahim started off by saying about not being afraid to reach out to people is actually sort of really important, and is a skill that you use all the way through your career. Like even me, like I run a production company at the moment, a scripted production company, but like the amount of times that I might send a cold email to somebody like Lee at a financier, at a broadcaster or whatever, to be like, I've got this project, you might be interested in it. Like, so that skill is something that we all need and we all use on a daily basis. And the other thing I would say is to just make sure that you're learning your craft. And that specifically, say for me, like in scripted, means actually watching TV. It means watching scripted TV shows, seeing what's out there, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Like when I set up this production company, I'm predominantly have done all of my career in TV, right? But I started having some film conversations. I can talk a lot very well because it's what I've been doing my whole life about high-end TV shows. Like actually the language that I have to talk about film and a lot of film and independent film, you know, there's sort of, Lee may disagree, but there's almost no point going to Lee and being like, I want to make the Avengers, right? Because it's like, he's like, okay, great. Go speak to Disney, see if they'll give you 500 million.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, if I'm going to be talking to Film Wales, to Film Cymru, I should be I should be able to be like, I actually saw this like independent Welsh film that you made, and like I've got something not necessarily similar, because he'll be like, well, I've already made that, but like, you know, I understand what it is that you as a funding body is about learning, and that's really important. That's the same if you're applying to a production company. Like, don't apply to a production company that doesn't make sci-fi if that's the only thing that you want to make, because they'll be like, we're not about that. So
I think it's always surprised me, and people might disagree, might agree, just how many people you might come across in the industry who don't really watch that much TV. And it's like, how? Like, did you not spend your entire teenage years just watching TV? And that's always been a source of surprise to me, I would say.
I was going to just add on a practical level as well. If you walk into a room to meet anyone on this panel or anyone, know what they've done. I've conducted interviews where they have stalked me on LinkedIn and Instagram, and they might know that I was at the Cardiff City game on Saturday because I happened to post a picture. But do they know that the company I'm working for, what we do and what we've made? Have they watched a programme that we might have had? It's all available on the iPlayer, My5, whatever platform you want. And you ask those questions, and for me, it's like, have you looked at my website? No. Well, interview over. You know, have you watched anything? You know, what do you think of the programmes that we make? Oh, I don't know. Didn't you do that so-and-so thing? I mean, really, you know, it doesn't matter what the industry is. If I was going for an interview with BP, I'd kind of know what BP were making. So if I'm going into BBC Studios or whoever it is, you want to know what they make and watch it.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll move on to a more kind of fun area of questions. So if you could work on any past project or current project or an idea of a project, what would it be? So for me, I would probably want to work on, I don't know, maybe Game of Thrones, or maybe Hannibal, the TV series, or maybe Godfather 2. How about you, Rahim?
Well, they've just finished as the Grand Tour.
Right.
With, you know, because I'm not into cars or anything, but I just love that. I love watching like Top Gear and the Grand Tour. Those three guys, I think, they got such great chemistry as on-screen talent. And you're just watching three mates, basically. That's all it is. And they're so juvenile and this, that. But also, the show itself looks so fun, as in the stuff that they get up to and everything. And they're having a laugh, and they big explosions and all the boys kind of stuff and whatever. And to me, I was like, that was always like kind of bucket list kind of show to work on something like Top Gear, and then, you know, or the Grand Tour, which they just finished. Or the other one would be, conversely to that, is a nice wildlife documentary. Because so far, I've done bits of that, but not an actual full-on where we can just watch the shots for a bit and I'll cut away after 3 seconds. You know, I'd love to do a show like that, you know, a nice wildlife documentary.
Nice. Fair?
A war film, but a comedy.
Okay.
With the Arabs.
Okay.
A comedy side of it, because there's always straight acting in it. It's war and this government and this religion and this culture, and we should play this way, and let's all laugh about it instead of being serious about it.
Will?
I thought long and hard about this one, and it's there's a part of me, and purely because friends were involved in that, yeah, and it's been mentioned when Doctor Who first came to Cardiff that first year, and I had friends who were involved in the crew in kind of smaller roles, and the excitement and the buzz that actually brought to Cardiff, I haven't felt anything like it.
Right.
I don't think ever, and I think, you know, to be effectively on the relaunch and the launch of effectively drama production in South Wales would have been really exciting. I never, you know, as I say, friends of mine were on that first series, and they said it was absolutely fantastic to be involved in, and the buzz that it caused, and I can't remember how many years ago now, what that has meant is, you know, for this area is just amazing.
Maybe Seinfeld, because like everyone involved's like a billionaire now, aren't they? So I think that would be good. Actually, I loved it in the 90s. It is a difficult one. I struggled with this as well, actually. I don't know. I feel like maybe the early days of The West Wing, when the writing was just really spot on. I would have loved to have sort of been around that writing room and just understand Darren Sorkin's process, and everything about that show right at the start. They just nailed it. You know, the walk and talk, which wasn't really done before, and just yeah, the general kind of scripts and those first few series were just out of this world, I think.
Nice. David?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because you just like oscillate between that. I really like that show, but like there's so many shows that I do like. And so I don't know. I'm just going to say it's probably sort of my favourite show. I think we were talking about it off camera, so it'd probably be Quantum Leap. Like the remake was, they did their thing, but it lost the essence of the original, which was the ability to tackle kind of socio-economic, cultural issues in an entertaining way. So it didn't ever really feel like you were being preached at, but like there was the episode where it was in the Vietnam War, or there was the episode where he leapt into the black guy. And so the ability to tell vastly different stories every single week, in a way they were like mini films, like it was like episodic TV at its best. And episodic TV in that way has sort of died a death, actually. Everything has to be serialized at the moment because we want to keep viewers and all of those sorts of things.
I would say I learned a huge amount about American social history through Quantum Leap. Probably more so than any other show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's everybody's favourite Welsh production? And I don't know if we can call Doctor Who a Welsh production, but I suppose maybe something that isn't hugely mainstream. Start with you, Rahim.
Skip me.
Or whoever wants to jump in. Whoever wants to go first. Well, what was that show? Was it Ned's Call Centre? What was it called?
I'll tell you what.
Call Centre, yeah.
What was it called?
It was called Call Centre.
Was that what it?
Call Centre. I tell you what,
that show was so fun.
At the BBC back in, was it May or June? I got invited to meet some commissioners, was it, for different projects, and there was one which I'm looking forward to seeing. It might be on BBC iPlayer now, but it's animation and it's called The Golden Dragon.
It's out.
It's out now, yeah.
It's out. It's funny.
I know, it's really funny. That's class. They showed us some of it.
Yeah.
And like they was explaining how the guys was filming it up in like where they lived in like their room, doing the voiceover with like a towel over their head and stuff like that. That and The Mammoth.
Oh yeah, that was good.
The Mammoth. I like The Mammoth, yeah.
Anyone else?
I mean, if I could pick do we call this a Welsh film? I think the Welsh film that probably had most impact on me growing up was Human Traffic.
Brilliant film.
Because, I mean, I don't know other people's experience. I grew up in Swansea, and you grow up in a city in Wales, and you don't really see cities in Wales that much on TV. You see Cardiff in Doctor Who, but you don't really see Cardiff, do you? And suddenly, to see a film like that set in Wales just felt completely different to anything that had gone before. It felt genuinely exciting, I think.
Human Traffic is the reason that I live in Wales. Like literally, that film came out and I wanted to go to film school, and he started that as a short film at the film school that I went to in the end, and I was like, I'm going there because that film is awesome, and then I never left Wales.
And it absolutely captured a cultural zeitgeist at that point. And I'm not sure there's been many other productions from Wales that have done that in the same way, certainly that I remember.
There was a show. It was an S4C show, so it's a Welsh language show. I don't actually know the name in Welsh, but I think the show was just literally called Rubbish, and it's about a rubbish tip in Wales somewhere, and it's a comedy. It was like half hour, and it was just a bunch of people who work on this rubbish tip, and it was so funny. Like it's one of those things. It's like when you strip away all the money and everything like that, and it's like we've got no bangs or whistles to fall back on. So what we just need is excellent characterization, and like that's what it had. It was so funny.
I mean, I'm harking back now, but I think for me, there was a strand in the 90s on S4C in the late 90s, and it was kind of between 9 and 11 o'clock once a week. And it was where my generation cut their teeth. And I was talking about it the other day, I think it was called E-Dot, but S4C tried to get edgy and they wanted a youth strand. And, my friends started companies and started making content and got it onto telly. And you just thought, that was brilliant. For someone who was at the time in their mid-20s and to have mates and to be able to work with your mates and see it go out. And like these people are now running companies 20 years later. to have that opportunity, and I think it's broadcasters like S4C are able to do that. They're able to take the chance. You wouldn't have got that on the BBC, but they knew at the time they needed to skew their audience younger because it was very much Dechrau Canu and Nos on Lawen. And I think, it gave a generation of programme makers a chance to cut their teeth and make mistakes. And those mistakes went out on television, and it was brilliant.
In a weird way, that is what the young filmmakers are doing on YouTube,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's like, it's that platform where it's just like, we can just get together with our mates, we can make a piece of content that we think is good for us. It's what we would watch, and you can just put it out and it will find that niche audience. And sometimes that niche audience is worldwide and then can equal millions.
And they also get the most brutal feedback straight away, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do a quick fire round. What's everyone's favourite film and TV show? So, favourite film, favourite TV show. You got to be quick.
Close Encounters and Friends, like I said.
Amadeus and series. What did I say? The series? The Wire.
Godfather 2, currently Life on Mars.
Amelie and Mad Men.
Quantum Leap and Bad Boys. Unless I'm in a room like this, then it's The Shawshank Redemption.
My guy.
Yeah, I could probably go again, yeah.
Yeah.
Being John Malkovich
That's carrying weight, that film.
and 24. I'll go with that, it's probably better.
Godfather 2 or Godfather 1, guys?
Godfather 2.
Two.
If we can go around and everybody can say where people can follow their journey on social media.
Something?
Yeah, please.
Well, for me, I would say LinkedIn. Just look for Rahim Mastafa on LinkedIn or on Twitter, X. That's probably the best place to find me.
Fair?
Yeah, me just stay at Al-shayei on Instagram.
So I'm on LinkedIn as William Gruffydd Edwards, that's my full name, and then X and Instagram as @Canton Flyers.
LinkedIn, Lee Walters.
Dave?
LinkedIn, David Davis, and I am David P. Davis across all the other socials.